Hi, Eva here. Today we are going to try and paint some Bachelor buttons or cornflowers. I have a sample here in my book, Share Wildflowers, written and illustrated by John Muir-Laws that I've talked about before. And he does have a Bachelor's button here. It's a non-native invasive plant or ornamental plant that has escaped into the wild here in the United States of America at least. I don't know for sure, but where I come from in Denmark, in Northern Europe, in Scandinavia, Bachelor buttons, they grow wild along the roads, along with the red poppies that are, kind of like our California poppies, but they're bright orangey red and have that very black center with the stamens and stuff. So I thought I was just going to start out in my art journal. This one is made by Strathmore and it's 140-pound cold pressed watercolor paper, but it's not cotton, it's wood pulp, so it doesn't react the same as watercolor paper. And once I've just done a little rectangle there where I've just kind of tested out, I've already sketched in some cornflowers here for a little painting. So I just did that in pencil, and then I used some washi tape to hopefully get a nice little border around. I have another little sketch down here. We're not going to do that today, but that'll probably be another lesson at some point. And this is a hydrangea. I don't think I've ever painted hydrangea. I've always wanted to, and I wanted to paint a super big painting for my bedroom over my bed, and I'm thinking hydrangea might be what I want, but that's going to be a test for another day. I already got my colors out. I have French ultramarine blue, I have cobalt blue, and then I have opera rose from Holbein. And then I thought I wanted to test out this other blue that I love so much. It's not in any of my standard palettes. It's Smalt or Dumont blue from Winsor Newton, and I got it many years ago when they had some sort of an anniversary, and then if you bought over a certain amount, they sent you a little tube like this one for free, and I completely fell in love with this color. I loved it so much, and then it was very hard. It wasn't part of their colors that you could buy. It was just for that little promotion thing to celebrate their anniversary. But then several years later, all of a sudden they had specialty colors that they brought out, and then they brought out this Dumont's blue again, and now it's actually available in, if you go in and check all the colors that they have, you can buy it. So I was so excited. So I have a whole bunch of them because I kind of hoarded them, I have to admit, back in the day when they were very hard to get. And I'm just going to put a little bit out here because I think it is a beautiful color for the cornflowers. And what I'm going to use this brush here. It's a round number 8 from Maria Raczynska. She's a YouTuber and she has a Patreon account, and I support her on Patreon, and I really like her a lot. I think her mother is from Poland, and so my sister-in-law is Polish. Halina, if you're watching this, hi. I love my sister-in-law. She lives in Denmark. I live here in California, up in Truckee. But anyway, I wanted, of course, to support Maria, and I know from experience that it takes a lot of work, folks, to find the manufacturer and all that stuff, and it's a pretty big investment to have, because it's not like you can buy 10 if you want to have a brush with your name on it. You have to buy a whole bunch. So I want to support her, and I think this one will be a really good one for the cornflowers. It's a number 8, so it's a smallish from my perspective. I like to paint with a little bit larger brushes, so it's more on the smaller side for me, but for little things like this, it's excellent. And for some people, this is kind of like their larger size that they like to paint with. But anyway, we're going to do first very little. I don't even have a drawing or anything. It's just to get the feel for it, and then we're going to paint in this brand spanking new sketchbook. Looks like this, has spiral bound, and it is also made by Maria Raczynska, and it's a beautiful watercolor journal, and she has little illustrations. She has a color wheel. The paper is Hanemühle, which I've never tried to paint on, so that'll be exciting for me to paint on the Hanemühle paper. There's four pages of cold pressed 300 grams, and there's 4 pages of rough 300 grams, and then there's 2 cold pressed 600 grams and 2 rough 600 grams. So 600 is what we call 300 pounds. So that's the really thick, and the 300 grams are what we call the 140 pounds. But anyway, so that's the paper. So it's good paper, and here she has a little bit more, you know, how to create natural shadows, and she has a little demo on how she's painting this sunbird, and then she has Charlie, it's a little doggy, and the broad-billed bird. I think that's an Australian bird, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I'm into bird watching, as some of you know. And then here she has a rose demo, and these are all, I think, painting demos that you can also find on her channel. And then she has nice clear sheet in between and then she has a color swatches page, and I just put it down, and then she has a nice clear sheet again, and then this is the 140 pound cold pressed, and that's what we're going to be painting on later. But let's just do a little test first. So I have never painted with this brush. This is my very first. I just took it out. I think you saw that, and if you didn't, I just took it out. And so we're just going to try and paint in that little Bachelor's button using our colors that we have here. So I'm going to go with a very, very light, that's a little bit of French ultramarine blue, and I put a little tiny bit of the opera rose in, so it's very watered down because I just want to be very loose and just kind of sketch it in with just the watercolor. And so you can see I'm just doing little flicks of the wrist. You can do it with the other hand too, and just kind of little flicks up like that. And let's do one down here. Little flicks. That way, you know, we kind of have the shape of the flower, and if we make a mistake, you know, it's very light, so it won't make such a big difference. And then let's do one up here, like that. So that looks kind of good. And then I'm going to take some of the water off, and let's try this Dumont's blue over here. I'm just going to put a little bit on my brush. And so you can see that's a little bit darker, not too dark. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that in. A little bit more down here. So there's that. And I'm going to rinse it out. And then let's make a green. So I'm going to take some of my French ultramarine blue, and I happen to have some yellow here. It's kind of a warm yellow, but that's okay. It's New Gamboge, because the greens on the Bachelor's buttons is not like a super bright green. It's a little bit more kind of a sagey. So that's going to be perfect. And they have these little, and I would kind of like to get it in, I think, while the blue is still a little bit on the wet side, because I don't want too hard of an edge there. So soft edge, so it's going to bleed in a little bit. I'm going to like that. If you don't like that, you'll have to wait for your painting to dry a little bit. And then here, just like that. And see already, aren't they beginning to look a little bit like the Bachelor's buttons? I think so. So let's just see if we can get a little stem on. I think I need to turn my book around a little bit so I can just, with a very tip, it has a very good tip, this brush. So far I like it, and it holds plenty of water like that. You know, this is just a little sketch that we're doing, so don't want to go crazy. And then since we have that green, let's do a little bit more, and let's do a couple of the buds. They look kind of like this. So let's do another little one down here. And then let's do, what else do we want to do? One here. Like that. Just gonna let that dry. And I might try to continue the stem here. And so can you see how I'm just barely touching, and I'm just using that beautiful point. And let's put a couple of little leaves on. And if I look, you can see Bachelor's buttons, they just have little skinny leaves like that. And you know, you can look up and find some drawings or some photos if you go to Pixabay or Paint My Photo or one of those free sites where you can use reference photos without, you know, copyright infringement. So I'm just gonna flick up like that, and then I'm gonna drag down this one, just drag it down like that, flick up like this, and let's drag this one down like that, and let's just put a couple more little flicks of green up here from the bottom to just fill it out a little bit more. kind of like what I have so far. Very loose. It's a very loose interpretation. Now I just cleaned out my brush and I took all the water out because can you see here? This bled quite a bit. I don't like that. So with a thirsty brush, I'm gonna go in and pick that up. Clean my brush again, and then let's go in and pick that up before it kind of dries with a hard line. There, it's good enough. And then, now that things are beginning to dry, I want to go in and put just a little bit of the upper rose and then some of the French ultramarine blue. So it's kind of a bluish purple, and you can do whatever color you like. And then I want to go in and do a couple more little flicks up so I get some color variation, especially here. I want to get more blue, not so much of the green. And so same here. So this one's one that's not quite open yet. See how nice that is? You get kind of like building up. You get a little bit of a building up of the petals. And then I want to go in and then I'm going to do a couple of little ones that kind of go down. Of course they are like that. And then I think I want to put a little bit more pink in. And then before these green ones, they dry completely, let me dab in a little bit of that purpley blue right at the tip so that I can push a little bit of that green away. I think it got very wet. So I want to just pick up a little bit again. Just so get a little highlight on them. There, with a thirsty brush. So this here is just in our little art journal or sketchbook, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, it's nothing to be too concerned about or anything like that. So here I put a little bit more yellow on. I want to dab a little yellow in at the bottom here. Go. And then feel that these got a little hard edge. So I'm just going to soften them a little bit of water on the tip of my brush. Yeah. I mean, they do look like Bachelor's buttons. A loose interpretation again, as I said. That was kind of fun. I'm going to let it dry. And then we might even put a little bit of pen work on because I think in this little sketchbook that would be a fun idea. I just want to pick out a little bit here top. And the same here with a thirsty brush. Just a little bit. So there, have a little bit of bluish there, the tip, right? So I'll just leave that to dry and we'll take a little break. So everything has dried and I'm okay with these here for a little sketch. I wanted to use my micron pen and pick my micron pen 01, it's a Kaivel ink, to just kind of give them a little bit more pizzazz. So I don't outline everything. I just go in and do, and I'm doing little like things like that because these little buds and stuff, they have like little, almost looks like scales. And again, just indicating them here and there on the little buds and then down here on the bud heads, or I don't know exactly, I don't have I should look in more in John Muir Law's book and see what they're called. But there, can you see how that already kind of makes it a little bit more distinct, I guess? And then let's do a couple of these here, little petals. And again, just here and there. I do have a few that got it. And you know, anything, nature, flowers, trees, grasses, rocks, all this stuff. Don't make it too regular because, you know, nature is perfectly imperfect. I always like to say. Perfection is highly overrated in watercolor is another of my favorite sayings. And yeah, I'm kind of happy with what I got here. And then let's just get a couple of lines here for the stems. And again, make sure that I don't just kind of outline everything, and a couple of lines in here and there. I think this is plenty cute, plenty good for a little study. This is a study there. I am gonna call that good. Zoom in so that you can see it. There. See? So I thought it would be fun to do maybe another little study where we're just going to do one flower a little bit more close up. I dug out my little watercolor pencils that I never use. I have the set of Caran d'Ache 12 Museum Aquarelle made in Switzerland, and then I have also 12 of the Faber-Castell finest artist quality, the Albrecht Dürer collection, and that's also, I think they're also German. These are Swiss and I think these are German. Or maybe made in Germany. Yeah, so not that it matters. And if you just have some, you know, cheaper ones, it doesn't matter. I'm not the biggest fan, to be honest with you, for watercolor pencils. But so these petals on the flowers, they have kind of like this fun kind of uneven shape. So it's like almost like there's like 3 little lobes on them. And again, I don't want to be too fuddly with this. And they come from down here. I should probably put that green in here. So they come kind of, and this is way too bright of green. One of the things I think I don't like so much about the brushes, or not the brushes, but the pencils I have is I really don't like the colors very much. I don't think they're very good colors. So here's a darker green, and then we can just put a couple up. Put a little bit of this in. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of, here I have like a magenta, put that on the green to just kind of tone it down, because these greens are way too bright. And then I want to go in and do a little bit of that one in here too. And there's going to be a little bit going down. So I'm just scribbling. It's really all I'm doing. And I wanted to also get a darker one in, because I want some darker ones. So I used 1, 2, 3 different blues. I have 2 different greens, but you know, you just use what you have. And who knows how this is going to turn out. I might not even want to include it in my video. It might be so hideous. Who knows? So let's use Maria's brush again. I just scribbled it in first, and now I'm just going to activate the colors. Can you see how garish green these are? So I think it was a good idea to kind of tone it down with that magenta. And then let's get our little stem. These leaves are they're a little too big for what they really are, but it's just for fun. Here is that. And again, I think it helped that I toned it down a little bit, and it's still kind of garish, but it's okay. So let's activate the colors we put on here for the actual flower and see how that goes. When I'm doing things like this, I can switch between my right and my left hand. I don't know if you noticed that. I'm trying to be aware of these things myself. I am left-handed, but I was forced to write with my right hand when I first went to school in a 1st and 2nd grade. I went to a very small little country school in Denmark, and we had a very old-fashioned teacher. She was not, I don't know. It was not a good experience, let's just put it that way. But the upside is that I usually paint with my left hand, but once in a while, when it's something that feels, I think, in my brain, feels more like writing, my right hand feels more comfortable, if that makes any sense whatsoever. All right, I mean, I like the flower. I don't like the leaves there very much, but that's okay. I like the flower, and we're just gonna let that dry for now, and then I can go in and maybe do a little bit more with the darker one, the darker blue one, and maybe even this one. I want to put in a few little scribbles here on the bud head there, and then let's put in a few more little darks here and there, and even with the magenta here. I kind of feel like it needs to be a little darker right there in the center. And then let's go in and activate it. So you do that activation, that's with a little bit of water. And you know, you can also use actually the lead as a palette. And then just, you know, can you see how now I could put a little bit more dark pigment on right there? And I might even go in. I have a credit card here that has a pointy end. I don't know if that was a good idea, but I did it, so it doesn't matter. It's all experimental. Okay, I'm gonna call that good. And then the only other thing I felt like doing on this other little one is I'm gonna grab my palette here and see if I can just grab a little bit of that yellowy orange I had in here in the middle. It's from another painting I was painting. And I'm gonna put my book on the side. I'm sure I don't have any of those droplets. And then I'm just gonna go in and give them a little bit, and now I'm gonna rinse it out. Just a little bit of a orange background, because, you know, orange yellow. That's kind of like the complementary color to the purplish blue. It's kind of like a yellow orange. So just to give it a little bit more pizzazz. I think that's a cute little painting. I like that. And since I'm at it, might as well do it over here. Plenty of water, just a little bit, and make sure you kind of fade it out and don't have any hard edges or anything like that. Let's see if we can go in between there a little bit. Just like that, little vignette. Once we take the tape off at some point, it's gonna look cute. I won't do that right now because, you know, I still have other little areas, and this one I messed up completely because I painted over it and I forgot that I had actually used the Tombow pens, which are very water soluble, and so they started bleeding and everything's a mess. But you know, it doesn't matter because what I can do, maybe I should just show you that as a little aside. Let me just make the whole thing like this. Can you see how that bleeds out right away? It's just dissolve the whole thing. And now I have a dark background for something. And I can go in and see how you can lift up a whole bunch. And then I'm just gonna let it dry. Anyway, forget about that one. I like the little ones I got here. Just gonna leave that one a little bit more undefined like that. The only thing I don't like is that it's kind of like it has a white halo there. Let's put a little bit of that in there just so that it doesn't look so weird. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so there was 2 little studies. So I think we can feel ready to do the real deal. So I'm gonna clean up a little bit and then we're gonna paint in Maria's watercolor journal that I wanted to test out. So that's gonna be fun. All right, I think we are ready to tackle the 3rd version and painting of the Cornflowers or Batchelor's buttons in my watercolor journal here. And I'm going to start out with some of the greens. I'm going to use Maria's brush, but I also need to use a liner brush, I feel. So let's see here. Let's get some, I already got my French ultramarine out. I got my cobalt blue out. Maybe I need a little bit more cobalt blue, a little bit more in here. And then I have my Dumont blue or smalt here. You don't have to have that one if you don't have it. All you need to do really is put a little tiny bit of a pink, and I'm using Opera Rose, I have that out here, in your French ultramarine blue, and you're good to go, because the Dumont's blue or smalt is also a very granulating color. I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much. And then I need a little bit of yellow to create my greens, and I think I'm going to go with my New Gamboge and maybe a little bit of the transparent yellow over here. It's just the greens in Bachelor buttons, it's a little bit more like a sagey green, and I was using a different brush to take my colors out, because if you have a good brush with a good tip, you know, you want to try and protect the tip a little bit. So scrubbing around in your dried paint wells is not always the kindest thing to do to your brush. So since Maria's brush here, number 8 round, has such a nice tip, I didn't want to start messing it up. Let's take a little bit of our French ultramarine blue and put it over here and see how we can get some nice greens, some lighter greens with the transparent yellow, and some little bit more muted greens with the New Gamboge. And I'm just going to go in with a light hand first. Why don't we just kind of tiptoe in, and let's paint this little seed head there. It's not a seed head, it's a bud, and it's green. So I'm just going to dab in a little bit of green, and just going to go down the stem like that. So it's very light, and there's another one there. This time I think I'm just going to go in wet on dry, such a small area. So now I have a little bit more of a brighter green there. Take some of the water on. It holds a lot of water, I can feel, which is a good thing. So I dipped into a little bit of the French ultramarine blue by itself. So I want to get a little bit of a variety. And then, sorry folks, I have to turn around. And I use this nice tip that we have just to go down a little bit. And see here, I'm going to just run in a little bit of that blue while it's still damp there, and rinse it out. And I think I might go in while they're still damp and roll my liner brush. This is a number 2, size 2, but it doesn't matter, whatever brush you have. And I could probably also use Maria's because it has such a fine tip. And let's see here if we can just kind of go down there and dip in a little bit more. I go really light to start with, and then down here I'm gonna run a little bit of a darker in. I like to have a color variation on these stems, and let's do this one. Has a nice curve to it like that, and I think I want to pick up a little bit there, so get a highlight. And while it's still somewhat damp, I'm gonna go in and just put a little bit more dark right there on the stem. And let's see if we can go in and, no, it's too wet. I wanted to see if we can get a little bit of those markings on, you know, have like little, it's almost like it has little scales. I lost my highlight here, so let's go in and pick that up again. What happens is if it's too wet, it just runs back in again. It's no big deal. And since we're using French ultramarine blue, that color is easy to lift. And so is the cobalt blue. And so here, let's see, has these little leaves. Maybe there's another head here. There is now, like that, a little bit of the blue in underneath. I just have so much fun doing this, just letting the colors kind of run together. I just really enjoy that. Put a little bit more water on, and when I dip my liner brush and also my number 8 brush, I like to roll it so that I keep that really nice tip. And so, see here, want to kind of, and this is very light. You can skip here and there when you do these stems because some places maybe the light hits them, they kind of disappear. I think I want to do this one too. Just like to get a feel for what's going on here. And don't feel obligated to follow your drawing completely. Just put in some more stems and some more leaves as you see fit. So here is one that's coming, but it hasn't really developed yet, so it's kind of a skinnier. And there's a little leaf, there's another little stem. And then I like to run in just a little darkness while it's still damp, so it kind of spreads by itself. I love that. I think that's such a great tip. And here's also a stem. So I'm just slowly building up my little composition here. And I'm looking more at, what I think it needs. There's another little stem. And don't make the stems too fat. We can always fatten them up as we go. But if we get them too fat and we want to kind of make them narrower, that's a lot harder. So try and see if you can keep them skinny. This one going up to there. Can you see how I'm just slowly building it up? Just having fun. Myself another little bit darker green, and again, let's see, I want to get another one up here, this one, and then there's one that goes behind here, and later we can always define what goes behind what and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be right this second. And I think I want another of these little buds here. Put a little bit in like that. And then let's grab my brush. And I'm going to take a little bit of this purpley blue, not that thin, and put that in here. A little bit of the French ultramarine blue maybe. And I want to say that this one is, can you see how it's just kind of beginning to open? How fun is that? So I just come up with things as I go. Let's see here. And here maybe I also want to put a little bit of blue in the tip first. And then let's see, put a little bit of the green on here. And I like it when they can kind of run together and give me a little bit of a fuzzy line there with the blue and the green they meet, because that's exactly how it is. And I'm just going to put some music on while I do some more of the stems so it doesn't get too boring for you to watch. So this is all the stems, or almost all of them. We'll tweak it as we see fit. But I think it's time to put in our flower heads, and I'm very excited about that. See a couple of lines that maybe I want to take care of before I do that. So far, I really like this Hahnemühle paper. I haven't even thought about it, which is a good sign. If you're not thinking about the paper, that means that it's not bugging you. I can totally see why Maria likes the Hahnemühle paper. It's German, I do believe. Okay, so I cleaned up my puddles a little bit. I got fresh yellow out here, and I got myself another French ultramarine blue because this one has turned more or less green. Here's my lovely brush. I like the brush too. Let's get started. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water inside here, not filling out the whole flower, and I'm just kind of thinking as if I'm already kind of painting the flower. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try and tip it so maybe the light will catch so that you can see. But you can see once I start putting some color in. Let's put a little bit of the cobalt in. Can you see how? And I want to just do it like this. Clean it out, pick some of it up, and then let's put a little bit of the Dumont blue in. Just going to leave it like that for now. While that kind of sinks into the paper a little bit, let's do another one. Let's do this one over here. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just dabble in a little bit of of water, just in an uneven manner. This time, let's put a little tiny bit of the pink in with a little bit of the French ultramarine blue. I just want to, and actually let's just dab a couple of those little in there. I just think that makes it more interesting when we have a little color variety. I'm a big fan of that. And I really like that lacy look. Let's put a little bit of the cobalt blue in here. Just like that. I think I want to just pick up here a little bit. I think I got a little darker than I want to start with. We can always make it darker, but you know how it is. We can't so easily lift out colors again. So let's do the same thing. I can see it's still damp there, so I want to wait a little bit longer. Just dabbing in the same manner. And then let's start with this Dumont blue. Dumont blue is a little bit more warm purpley than French ultramarine blue. Let's dab a little bit in here. I like what we see here, like that. Looks really good, I think. There. And now, before they dry on me, I'm going to start down here. Now let's get a little bit of that green in here. I'd like to get it in before the blue dries completely. I don't want the green to go racing in, but I would like to have a little bit of a softer edge. So hoping to get that a little bit there, and then we can go over and do a little bit here. And again, I do like to get a little color variation. See there, it bled in a little bit. I like that. And then go down the stem also a little bit, just so there's no real hard edges. And I think I might go in and just pick up a little bit there. There. And we can also do this one up here. See, that we get a little bleeding. Rinse my brush out. Like that. And let's get a little bit of a highlight on there and there. And I don't know if we can do it here. Yep, I like that. Looks pretty good. There. And then we can continue with some more. I think we want to go in and do a little bit of a darker blue. So I'm going to take French ultramarine blue and then a little bit of that Dumont blue. And I'm going to go in and just dibble dabble in a little bit here and there. Get a little bit of darker. It's kind of more towards the center. I like how that turned out. This is a little too hard edged for my taste. I'm just going to pick it up. And the same here. Just pick up a little bit. I like the look of that. So nice and loose, but you still have that characteristic of the Cornflowers or Bachelor's buttons. That's the name of these here. Maybe I want to put a little bit of not that pink. Let's blue it down a little bit. Just like to get a little bit of that in. There. And again, you can do the colors and how you want it. if you don't want to experiment as much as I do. I'm teaching you, so I have to take the risk, right? And then you can decide whether you want to do the same, or if you're like, no, that doesn't look very good. I don't want to do that. I'm even thinking maybe I want to use my credit card a little bit. Be careful with this. Just to get a little bit of, they do have some stamens kind of like in the middle. Can't really see them always. It all depends on, the angle and stuff. So far, so good. I like what I have there. And let's go in and do a couple more. Here I have one. And I kept my pencil line super, super, super light. So dabbing in here. So this is cobalt blue, and I have a little bit of, but not much, a little bit of that Dumont blue in it. So keep it nice and lazy, because that's really how they are. And we can do, there's one behind there, but we'll go somewhere else. Let's go down here and do this one. And there, I think I want to go with the Dumont blue. Can you see how that's a little bit more purpley? Really like that. And here I'm going to take a little bit of the pink, put a little bit in. Just a little bit of that. And I think I can do one more. Let's do this one too. And so if you've had too much coffee, that's excellent for this. So let's go in and take this one. That's a French ultramarine blue that has a little bit of the opera rose in. Dabble a little bit of that in. Put a little bit in here. And then I'm going to rinse that out. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the cobalt blue. And you can see I keep it fairly light. And there's a lot of water in, so there's that. And I think they're still so wet that I have to wait a little bit before I put the green in. So just gonna keep an eye on them. We can do this one up here. Let's do the Dumont blue. So, and put a little bit of the cobalt in here and there, just to liven it up a little bit there, and maybe even a little bit of the pink there. I like that. So now I can tell this one here is beginning to dry a little bit more. The shine is leaving the paper. So I can go in and put some of that green in with a little bud slash what's going to turn into a seed head later. I'll get that nice soft edge, and I want to pick up just a little bit here, and then I can go in and do a little bit of darker right there, so get a little bit more of the dimension on it. See that? I like to do it when it's still a little bit damp, not too wet. These here, they spread a little bit more than is ideal, but it's okay. Okay, let's go in and do another little. Yeah, I like how that turned out. Put a little bit of darker in there. And then here. Put that in. And again, I think I want to take my tissue and just pick up a little bit there. So I get a little bit of a lighter, so kind of brings it forward. And let's see here. I have a little bit more green on my tip of my brush here, using my number 8 round. And then I'm going to run in a little bit of darker from this side, and not too wet. The wetter your pigment is, the more it runs. Just giving it a little bit of a darkness on that side. Actually here it's dry, but I can still do it. And the same down here, I can still do it. And then just going to flip it around, and then I can just loosen the edge a little bit. So if you don't get that little bit of shadowing the first go around, you can always go in and do it again. And here I think I can pick up a little bit on the lighter side. I'm going to have the light come from that side. Can also pick up here. It almost dried on me, but it's okay. Again, as I mentioned earlier, since we are using French ultramarine blue and cobalt blue, and the Dumont blue too for that matter, they all lift very easily. So that's nice. Just make my green here. Go down. Re-emphasize that stem a little bit more. And that was very wet, so I'm going to pick up a little bit. wait just a bit. Yeah, that's good enough for now. Just leave that for now. I don't mind that they're very light right here. We can always darken them a little bit, and we can put a little darkness in behind to establish a front and a back. Like that. I like that. Can you see that? I think that turned out pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pointy credit card and just scrape out a little bit there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of there. That turned out okay. Let's see. That one is still a little wet, so we better leave that. So I have one more here. I have 3 more up here, but one is in front and kind of overlaps the 2 others a little bit. So I'm going to paint that first. I'm going to put some cobalt in. Ooh, that really wanted to get in there, didn't it? And I'm going to take a little bit, tiny bit of the pink in, just for fun. Just like this, and maybe a little bit of French ultramarine blue. There we have it. Gonna leave that for now, and then I think we have to take a little break because it has to sink in a little bit before I can paint these 2 and before I can put the green on. This green turned completely blue, but that's okay. Let's put a little bit of green in on this side. There. So it's very delicate. Okay, I think it's high time to get the greens on this one here. Starting out with a little bit more yellow green on this side. And let's put the darker in. That'll tone it down. And run it down the stem a little bit. That. There. I like that. And I kind of like it the way it is, so I don't think I really want to mess too much with it. You know, just maybe. Maria's brush really does hold a lot of water. I have to remember to dip it more. Just want to put in a little bit of a darker here. Just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension. Like that. Kind of like that. There. And then no more. Because, you know, I don't want them to all of a sudden be like too hard edged and stuff. So, there, give it a little bit more depth. There, there. Stop, Eva, stop. So, I think I could do this one here. I got a little too much water on there. Soak that up. Okay, eeny, meeny, miny, moe. So we're gonna take a little bit of the Dumont blue here. This one I want to say that either it's wilting a little bit or it's just opening up and it goes behind here. So that means I want to do it a little darker. Tone it down a little bit, the purpley in there. Not as happy with the shape of that one. I feel like it's just a little too. I'm sure I can fix it. Let's not panic. And then we have another one here that goes behind here and a bit like that. Let's put that one. Whee! Cobalt. And let's put a little bit of the Dumont blue in. And now I'll go back here and just kind of that one going a little bit. And I think I can probably put the green in there, darker green on here. And again, let's go down the stem a little bit. I really like the tip on this brush, it's really nice. And let's continue down here. There, a little bit darker there, like that. Take a little highlight out there. I feel this one needs a little bit like that. I think I want to try and just dab in a couple of droplets of water to kind of push the pigment away right there. That sometimes works really, really well. And let's go in here and just dab a little tiny bit of some pink in there. It's too wet for the green. So we're gonna just let it sit for just a moment. Okay, let me not miss my opportunity to get the green in there. So here we go. more yellow on the other side. There we go. I think that's good. There. And then I think I'll just let it sit and marinate a little bit and just pick up a little bit of that. I don't think I want to do a whole lot more, other than probably I feel I need maybe a few more grasses, variety of color. I think it would be nice to probably have just a couple here. I'm just going to do like this. It's a flick of the wrist, start down and roll my little liner brush. Just, so I barely have the tip. Just want to have a little bit more, kind of like some grasses and stuff in the background, because these Bachelor buttons, they always grow, I find, among grasses and stuff like that. So. But I like to have this nice and airy feel. So I have a couple of things I think we can improve on just a little bit. Again, without going overboard. I'm going to use my rigger brush for that. I want to just dabble in a little bit. A few places. Just give it a little tiny bit more dimension. But again, let's not overdo it. A little bit of darkness in a couple of the centers here. Again, keep it, to a minimum. Step back and take a look. And it's one of those, if you can't think of anything to do, usually means we're done. I think this is pretty good. And then, I don't know, I was thinking about, putting on a little bit of texture on some of the seed heads. And I'm just going to do barely, anything. Just a few little dry brush strokes, because I know that they, have like these little scaly things. But this is not a painting that's like hyper realistic or hyper detailed. I like the lightness of it and, kind of like the looseness of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Only thing I think I might want here is, let me just get a good roll in some pigment here of green. I'm feeling that maybe it'll be nice to have a couple more little things here. And if it gets too blue, it's okay. Or too green, it's okay. You can tone it down. And I think it would be nice to have maybe a couple more of these little, maybe just even that one, or one more kind of up here. It's just going to be a little one that's just beginning to come out. And this one here can be one that's like that. And I think I want to just do like this, just tone them down. And over here, maybe a little bit of that blue in the tip here. It's also one. Either it's, either it's opening up or it's welting. I'll leave that to the viewer's discretion. I feel I could do a little bit darker right there. Yeah, I'm having too much fun, so I think I better leave it be, because I think I like it. The only thing I want to do is, I do really like what I had in my journal. I really like that little bit of that yellow, orange yellow coming down. So I'm gonna let it dry, and then we're just gonna give a very light little indication of that. Okay, everything is bone dry. I really like it. I hope you like it, yours too. And I'm taking a big old soft brush that'll hold a lot of water. It's a number 30 and it's one of Birgit O'Connor's brushes. I bought it many years ago. I've taken a lot of Birgit O'Connor's classes. I love her. She's probably the biggest influence in my, watercolor life, so to speak. I love, 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 love her approach to both watercolor and to teaching. I really admire her. She's really, she's probably my biggest watercolor hero, I like to call them. The other one is Carlin Holman. She unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago now, and I was lucky enough. I mean, it wasn't even a year after I took a workshop with Carlin that she passed away. And both those ladies are just fabulous. There's lots of other great, of course, watercolor artists, male and female. But being a female myself, I really find that it's really great to have some female role models, because we do have our own whatever, I don't know, struggles or things that we have to deal with because we are female, with your younger family and trying to balance that. And even though of course males also have kids, but still in 2021 it still very often falls on the females to make sure that the family is taken care of. When push comes to shove, it's mostly still, even in our day and age, the females that have to make sure when kids get sick or something like that. All right, so I'm just dabbling around and I'm trying to use as few brush strokes as possible, and I'm just kind of, I don't want any hard edges or anything like that. So I'm just gonna pull it down, and it doesn't have to be the yellow everywhere. I want to kind of fade it out as we move down the page. I'll pull it down further over here and leave that more lighter white in here. There. I think it's pretty good, and just barely touching. I don't want things to start flowing out, but I also don't want like white halos around my flower heads. And rinse it out, and then just kind of drag it into nothing. It's nice and soft. And then I'm going to take a little tissue and gently just kind of pick up a little bit here and there. That helps with not getting hard edges and hard lines where we don't want them. There. I think this is good. I think this is pretty good. So we're just gonna have to let it dry again. And so the color I used was my New Gamboge in a very, very watered down version. And you want to really make sure, and I think actually I'll pull the tape off now because it didn't stick that well. And I've found if you pull it off right after you have put like your wet wash on, it doesn't creep under. Sometimes it'll creep under. See, a little bit more yellow up in that corner, and then just kind of let it fade out into nothing. And we're gonna let it dry, and then we'll take a final look at it and see if we feel that we said what we wanted to say with these Cornflowers or Batchelor's buttons. And now you have 3 different ways you can paint them. Here's the one we did first. We didn't do any drawing or anything. We just went in with the colors, and then once it was dry, I went in with a little bit of a micron pen. And then here I did just one, and I did it with my watercolor pencils, and I think that turned out pretty nicely too. And then here I'm working on another, probably going to be another class, hydrangeas. But anyway, that's for another day. And you can see in my little dark thing up there that I had messed up. Now I used some gold and some white paint, and I'm trying to make that into something. Anyway, we'll let this dry completely, and then we'll reevaluate. So everything is dry, and I really like it. I think this one turned out lovely, and can certainly be framed, and I like the delicate nature of it. Normally I probably paint a little bit more colorful, but for these Batchelor's buttons, they are kind of delicate flowers, so I don't feel I want to be any more heavy-handed with them. So this was the one we did just a more traditional style with watercolor, did a little bit of sketching, kept my pencil lines very, very light, and then we practiced a little bit in my other art journal, which is a Creative Mark Strathmore with wood pulp paper. Here we put the colors in and did a little bit of pen work, and then here we used our watercolor pencils, so for just a little practice. And then here we used our new Watercolor Journal by Maria Raczynska, and it's the Hannemühle paper. This is 140 pound cold pressed. I used mainly the round number 8 brush that I bought from Maria. All the links are below. And then I used my dagger brush here, and this one is from by Rosemary and Company, and it's actually Jean Haynes Kolinsky Sable number 2 brush, but you don't need a fancy brush like that. Normally I would use my number 2 liner or dagger brush from Creative Mark's squirrel set that I always recommend. Or you could also just have used, since there's such a nice tip on this brush, if you have a brush that has a really nice tip, you don't really need a dagger brush. It's just a little practice. But anyway, give me a thumbs up, please. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Hit the little bell so you get notifications when I upload a new YouTube video for you. And I don't know if it's going to be the next one. In the near future, I will be doing a hydrangea demo. And I have a feeling it'll be in the loose style because they really lend themselves nicely to loose paintings. But that's for another day. I wish you happy painting. Have a lot of fun with this. And if you want to show me your paintings, why don't you just tag me on Instagram or on Facebook? You can see below I have all the various and sundry links. And if you use the hashtag watercolor with Eva, I will see it. So that would be fun. Happy painting and see you in another YouTube video very soon.